Never mind the fact that I look sweaty. I just got back from the gym, but I've been thinking a lot about MMOs lately because I've been playing Maple Story and ESO. So let's watch this video and let's talk about it.
The MMO genre is dead and I'm kind of tired. I know what you're thinking. Sticks, no, the MMO genre isn't dead. We have so many great looking MMOs coming. Maybe. Sure. Sticks, we have so many.
Okay, so here's the thing, and I kind of alluded to this the other day in a video where I was talking about why games aren't the way that they used to be. Um, and I sort of agree with him in an interesting way. I think that we have everything that MMOs have to offer us in the current state. Unless there's some kind of absolutely game-changing, next-level, paradigm shifting thing that happens with MMOs, I don't think that we're going to have any kind of new MMO that really makes us connect in the way that these older MMOs used to. And if we do connect to it, it's going to be because it's just a rehash of some other game and it just happens to come at the right time when the market is primed for it. I think that we have seen everything that the MMO genre really has to offer us, and that's the reason that people are so tired of MMOs now. It's not because they're broken now, it's not because the market has introduced all these microtransactions, it's not because the gear doesn't matter anymore, it's because you've already experienced what an MMO can be, and it's fulfilled itself inside of you. And I've been playing a lot of ESO and MapleStory, and they're both really enjoyable to me. I like selling things on an open market to people. I like leveling up my character and doing quests. I enjoy getting new gear and seeing my numbers go up. I like doing all of those little things, collecting pets and skins and all of these things. I enjoy all of that. But I don't know that I need another MMO in my life anymore. That's just sort of where I'm at right now. I have World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV, RuneScape, MapleStory, ESO, Black Desert Online, and that might be all of them. But what else do I need? Really, old school RuneScape. Did I say old school RuneScape? I think I said old school RuneScape. In all of those, the grounds are now covered, and I don't need to. I don't need to experience another MMO just for the sake of experiencing another world. I feel like everything is just trying to rip off the mechanics and put them together, and until we have some kind of new thing, that's what we have is what we have.
Many incredible MMOs that are still alive. Sure, WoW, Final Fantasy XIV,
Yeah.
Guild Wars 2, maybe Black Desert, maybe ESO, all games that are a minimum of a decade old.
Yeah.
Which means there really hasn't been a single good, high quality MMO that has remained relevant released in the last.
And those MMOs will continue on probably into perpetuity. If I can make a guess, I would say that World of Warcraft, ESO, Final Fantasy XIV, Old School RuneScape, Guild Wars 2, all of these games will probably exist for a very long time to come. As long as they put out new content and they continue to market and they continue to pull new players in who have never experienced anything like that before, they will get those people, and they will have people to come in and spend money on their products. And they'll continue. I mean, I've met people who play ESO that have never played another MMO. That's the first one they ever played, and they've played it for 14,000 hours because it just left a mark on them like nothing else that they had played before. I've met people who've done the same thing with World of Warcraft, RuneScape, MapleStory, all of these games. That's the one MMO they've experienced, and they don't really care to experience another one. They've invested all this time already. They have all of these skins figured out. They have clout in that game. They can show up and they can teach other people how to do bosses. They have purpose in that game. Why would they move to somewhere else? It is a trait of people who are MMO connoisseurs that we jump from game to game when we find a quality in that game that we don't like, and then we try to find a different game that has not that quality in it. And that's not something that most people do. Most people find their home and they stay there. And that's what's going to stop a new MMO from coming out. When a new MMO comes out, it's trying to only get the people like us who absolutely love MMOs. And because of that, the player base is going to be dramatically smaller than one of these Goliaths like World of Warcraft, Final Fantasy XIV. We've already talked about them all. I don't need to list them every single time. But that's always going to hurt them. The player base of these hyper fixated gamers, just not MMO gamers, just normie gamers, are the people who keep these games alive because they're the ones who buy microtransactions. They're the ones who leave the subscription running even when they're not playing the game because they know they're probably going to come back because it's the only MMO they play. That's who's keeping these games alive. That's who keeps them afloat. And then the whales, obviously. I mean, games like Lost Ark and games like that will last for at least a while just because there are whales who are spending their money on it.
Decade. I'm tired because there just doesn't really seem like there's a whole lot to cover. There just doesn't seem like there's really a whole lot to play.
There's not a lot of change.
I started this channel back in 2017, and over the course of the last 7 years, I've shifted the direction of the channel, the focus of the channel numerous times.
Yeah. I have a problem with the idea of becoming an MMO-centric channel for this exact same reason, because there's not a whole lot of development that happens in the MMO scene. I feel really bad for people who literally have their channel called MMO Byte or whatever. I once had an idea for a channel called MMO Junkie back in the day, where I would go through and play these MMOs and make a whole bunch of guides for every single MMO that I could get my hand on. But what I really discovered quickly was that I would quickly become bored doing that because so many of them are so similar and they have a dramatically, you can take the systems from one and basically implement it onto the other, and there's really no need for all of those guides. There's already people doing the guides for each individual boss to explain the mechanics and things. Really, what I think that the most valuable thing to do and the most valuable video that could be made on MMOs is just an explanation of what an MMO is and how the kind of play style that you need to have in order to make your time in an MMO feel valuable to you. That's the thing that I think is probably the most important video to be made, and that probably already exists somewhere. So what is there really to cover in an MMO that hasn't? When these games come out, when these new content patches come out, they're solved within minutes of playing them. So the secrecy and the mystery of exploring the world, that's all kind of gone now unless you're just absolutely going in blind, and that's really the best way that I think there is to play an MMO nowadays. So I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. If you guys think that this isn't true, then that's totally fine and I could get behind that. And I hope that I am wrong. I want there to be some kind of incredible Sword Art Online next level thing that absolutely blows my mind, but I just don't see it happening.
We started as a gameplay channel. We shifted towards news. We started doing both gameplay and news. We started doing reviews. At present, I've played every MMO.
Yeah.
At present,
I bet he has.
There is very little in terms of news for new MMOs. I've reviewed
Wuthering Waves looks really
every
good.
single
I'm
MMO
interested
or
to play
close
it.
enough to it. And while I still plan on covering MMOs in each respective year, in a slightly different way, I'm sure if you've looked at my channel recently, you'll see that I've taken a new direction with regards to covering MMOs in 2024. It's gotten to a point where I just feel like there isn't really enough that warrants full-time coverage of MMOs, and I'm not the only one that feels this way. The Lazy Peon has been covering non-MMOs. Kira TV no longer covers MMOs at all. Josh
100%. I mean, this is the reason that I make all of these different kinds of videos. Some of my most popular videos have been videos about MMOs, and people always say, man, I wish you'd make more RuneScape content. I wish you'd make more MMO content. I wish you'd do all of these things. But it's such a difficult field to get into, and the only thing that I really have are my experiences with those MMOs and the stories that I've found and had over my times playing them. And I don't want to exhaust all of those because you can't eat all your candy at once. You know, you have to have some of that stashed away for after Halloween. So it's difficult. There's not a whole lot of RuneScape videos being made by people that I think are worth me covering. There's not a whole lot of MapleStory videos being made by people that I think are worth me covering. It's a very interesting genre in that way.
Strive Hayes has another channel called Josh Strive Plays, which does even better than his MMO channel, and honestly those are actually really good videos, by the way. Mitch Mannix is beginning to also distance himself from MMOs just a little bit. Asmongold very rarely reacts to MMO content anymore.
Totally.
Content creators are just leaving the genre. Honestly, there's only so many times.
It's a great place to get your foundation in. I find that as a content creator, as somebody who's making videos on this platform, it is a really nice way to find an audience, because it turns out that a lot of people who play MMOs have similar thoughts and ideas to me, because that one link that connects us is telling of a personality trait that usually lets them link into my other personality traits, that they are like me in that way, and the people who like all different kinds of MMOs tend to think about the same things that I do. We have brains that sort of go for statistics. We have brains that are very interested in solving puzzles and recognizing when something hasn't been solved yet, and trying to think of new ways of how to solve that. That's what we do.
We can play a game or replay a game. And what future do we have to look forward to? Recently,
We like to
Tower
grind.
Fantasy released. That did horribly.
Tower
Blue
Fantasy
Protocol
was Tower Fantasy even an MMO? Could you go? In my mind, an MMO is a world that you step into, and there are other players around you on your server who are just walking around all the time. You'll run into them in a whole bunch of different areas, unless that area is instanced. I logged into Tower Fantasy, and maybe that game was just so dead by the time that I finally logged into it. But was that an MMO? It felt like it was just a Genshin Impact clone to me.
supposed to release years ago. We're still waiting for that. We don't even know if it's going to release in 2024 anymore. Throne and Liberty. God knows how that's going to do. Both Blue Protocol and Throne and Liberty have failed horribly in their countries of origin. We have Ashes of Creation that is still in the early alpha stages of development. That is years and years away from releasing. The Riot MMO announced they are going to go essentially radio silent for years.
Which is upsetting. I was really excited about the Riot MMO. I do play quite a bit of League of Legends, or I have in the past at least. And I love the characters in that world, and I was very excited to get to see what their take on an MMO would be. I like the stylistic choices that they make. I think that their games are really cleverly done, and I was very excited to see that game. It's sad that that one's got pushed so far back. Whenever the Riot MMO comes out, I'll play that one for sure.
Meaning this game is even further away than it was a few years ago when it was first announced. ArcAge 2 was supposed to release in 2023, got delayed to 2024. Got delayed from 2024 to 2025 now. They shut down the original ArcAge server. They don't have anything. There's no ArcAge left for people to play. Chrono Odyssey was supposed to release in 2024.
A game with the title of Chrono Odyssey sounds like some teenager's pet project, and not exactly a game that I think is going to be very good.
Odyssey got pushed back from 2024. Now it's releasing in 2025. That's if it releases in 2025. Odin Valhalla Rising was supposed to release in 2022. Got delayed to 20.
These games cost an insane amount of money to develop. People who aren't hip to how these games actually function have no idea the kind of work that needs to be done on them in order to get them to market. There are extremely large databases involved that have to be queried at extremely fast rates, and anytime you have that going, a client-server type of connection amongst tons and tons of people where you're trying to sync with that server constantly is a difficult thing to do. And then when you factor in the fact that like there is almost no solo content in these games, that you're always in a lobby with just thousands of people, the logistics of making that happen is really difficult. If you look back at New World and you see all of the problems they had, that's what happens when you rush an MMO. You get all of these systems that are absolutely broken and destroy the game. I mean, the kinds of things that happen during that game, the initial launch of it, the latency issues, the ability to become invulnerable by moving your windows around, showing that stuff was client-sided, those are all quick hacks that these developers have to take in order to get the game to function whatsoever, and they're problematic in the long term. People think of software as being this thing that you create and then it functions. But when you add new things into software, anything you add has knock-on effects that trickle out into everything else. Systems that worked before stop working when you add one new item into the game, because that new item can just add in so much more need to query, or so much more need to balance out the damage of different things. There can be stacks that happen that you can't foretell, and when you have to constantly release new content for something, your foundation has to be absolutely concrete. It's not like a game like Fortnite where everything kind of works together, and next season it's going to be all gone. They're going to put in new stuff that's going to break the game anyways. You'll have to learn a new meta. It's not like that. They need all of these things to function long term, and for the foundation to just sit there and be golden, and that takes so long to do. There's so many problems that have to be solved, and you need so many people to work on those problems, and getting those people to all work together and to figure out, it's such a difficult process. I mean, it is astounding that MMOs have been made ever, period.
2023, 2024. Now the company behind it has been silent for about a year. God knows if we're still even getting it. Grand Saga, that was released years ago in Korea and Japan. That was supposed to release globally years ago as well. You know what? We still haven't gotten it. They did confirm we're going to be
Taurus Land that NCSoft WoW clone? Is that what that game is? I've been seeing Taurus Land all the time lately. Let me see if this is what this is. Hold on. Or is this just a mobile game? Who's this by? Screw off. Okay, so it's not out yet. Okay, so it's still on pre-order. Okay, so I've been seeing a lot of stuff about Taurus Land. Is this the MMO that's supposed to be basically a WoW clone from NCSoft or whoever it is? Level Infinite. Who is Level Infinite? Anyways, this is the game that I'm thinking of. Let me know if that's the one that I'm thinking of. Asmon's been doing coverage on it, but I haven't been able to watch Asmon's channel for weeks now.
The game soon. What does that mean? Crimson Desert was originally being developed as an MMO. They decided it wasn't worthwhile anymore.
Like Black Desert?
They can make more money by having it not be an MMO. Dokkaevi was originally being developed as an MMO. You know what? That's no longer an MMO either. Why?
That's
the very
wild.
same reason. It's more beneficial, more lucrative to not have it be developed as an MMO.
Yeah, people want to have their cake and eat it too, and it creates this cognitive dissonance in everybody's mind. People imagine these games being absolutely perfect, but there's no chance that they're ever going to be. They all have their shortcomings, and people want a game that has combat like Dark Souls, that is super rewarding to play for even an hour at a time, that they can play with every single one of their friends who plays video games, will be appealing to everybody in the whole world, has incredible PvP, has the best raids you've ever heard of in your life, has gear rewards that actually matter and feel like you've achieved something and continue on forever, has constant content updates, has an economy that booms and is really well regulated and works perfectly, has systems that are unable to be broken. They want all of these things in a game, and that just, some of those things conflict with the other things. This is what I've always tried to impress upon people who tell me that they're game designers, is that you have to pick a type of game and you have to make that type of game. And if you at any point think, what if I made this game, but also it was that, you're in the wrong place. You really are. You need to decide what you're going to do, and you need to work within the boundaries of that and then create new things to expand the boundaries of that. That's your goal as a game developer. Dungeons and Dragons is not a first-person shooter. It's a tabletop RPG. And over the years, they have thought of new and clever ways to expand the world of Dungeons and Dragons to allow it to be moved on to so many different things. But nothing you do to Dungeons and Dragons is going to make it a first-person shooter like Halo on your computer. That's not what Dungeons and Dragons is. They shouldn't take development time to try to make that thing. You need to pick a type of game.
Instead, either have it as a single player or a multiplayer focused game. Dungeon Fighter Overkill, which was essentially the revamped Dungeon Fighter Online that was supposed to be an MMO, was confirmed to also no longer be an MMO. This is an MMO that I was super hyped for because it looked so good and played so good. Not an MMO anymore. Why? Because studios don't want to make MMOs anymore.
Yeah.
It's just too difficult and not worth the investment, the time investment.
And also, MMO fans are some of the most just frustrating people to speak to. They They will have 30,000 hours in a game and they will tell you that they absolutely hate that game and new people shouldn't play it. And it's like, well, should they play it for 2,000 hours? Were you hating that game at 2,000 hours or did you enjoy it? Well, right now with the state that it's in, no. Let's talk about this. If you were a brand new person and you didn't understand all of the stuff that you understand about that game, and you logged in right now and played it for that 1,000 hours, would you be happy with the price that you had to pay for that 1,000 hours? This is a thing that nobody wants to answer to me when I ask it to them, because they always want to go back to like, well, with the state of the game. Brother, the people who are new to this game do not understand what the state of the game means. They do not know what Blizzard is doing right now. They do not care what Blizzard is doing right now. Can they log in and play the game? If the answer is yes, that's basically all they care about. Can they get onto the game and level up to level cap and join a guild and do a little bit of pug raiding? Can they do that? Yes. Then tell them that it's probably worth their time to play if they want to play it. Because here's the thing. New players to World of Warcraft are coming to World of Warcraft because they like something about it. And genuinely, they might end up playing for 30,000 hours over the course of their lifetime too. And when they're at that 30,000 hour mark in the 30th expansion of World of Warcraft in the year 2060, they're going to say, well, because of the state of the game right now, when I first started playing, it was way better. No, you didn't know anything about the game yet. That's why you thought it was way better. It has nothing to do with how the game was. Playing World of Warcraft back in vanilla WoW, way back in the day, classic WoW, it was a different experience than what it is now. But if a person who is 14 years old starts playing World of Warcraft today, they will enjoy it. I guarantee it. I guarantee it, especially if they already look at that game and they think it looks kind of cool. If they stick with it, they will have a good time. Guaranteed.
The financial investment.
All of these games are good. It's insane to me that I have to make this comment about these things. They have hundreds of thousands of daily players. These games are good. There is no way that you have a game that has 100,000 daily players that doesn't have aspects of it that are appealing enough to get that many people in there. There's no way that you are releasing Cyberpunk 2077 in the state that it released in, and you get that many daily players for as long as these games keep these daily players. It's not possible. There's no way that you're releasing No Man's Sky in the state that it released in and having daily players for years and years of 100,000 or higher. These games are not games like that. They might be 7 out of 10 games now, and you might have once felt like they were 10 out of 10 games, but they are still decent games, and I hate this rhetoric that people want to know why no one wants to play MMOs before, because you tell them not to all of the time. All day, every day, you complain about every single thing that's going on in an MMO because it's not the way that it used to be when you were a kid, and I just think that that's the dumbest thing in the whole world. Talk about the good things, bro. Talk about the good times that you've had while doing it. Talk about the first raid that you ever did. The first time I did a raid in World of Warcraft, I was shaking. I only got into World of Warcraft in the past couple of years, and I only did my first raid about 6 months ago, and it was the Storm Dragon. I don't even know the names of these characters, but the Storm Dragon that pushes you off the thing if you're not standing in exactly the right spot. That one, he's in the Dragon. What's it called? The Dragonflight expansion. Like the first time I did that raid, I was shaking with excitement. And when we finally beat him after dying 4 times, after getting wiped 4 times, it just felt so incredible. The first time I got a piece of gear that raised my item level up by like 10 levels, when I was at level cap, I was like, oh, I want to do this forever. When I first discovered how to upgrade my items and do my dailies to get my stuff to upgrade my items, I wanted to do that. It was enthralling to me to be able to play a game and gain power in it and understand the systems and be part of that game. That was a good time. Just because you have played it for 30,000 hours does not make it a bad game. It means that you have overstayed your welcome, probably.
Project BBQ, which was that beautiful anime MMO set in the Dungeon Fighter world. but
And I'm not
MMOs
saying you
anymore.
shouldn't.
The MMO genre
I'm not
right
saying
now,
that you shouldn't hold these games accountable for what they do. Like, you shouldn't let World of Warcraft just absolutely go and the developers do whatever they want. That's not what I'm getting at here. You have to hold them accountable. But to tell people that they shouldn't even play the game when you know that that's not true just upsets me.
because studios don't want to make
let's
MMOs
get back to
anymore. It's just too difficult and not worth the investment, the time investment or the financial investment. Project BBQ, which was that beautiful anime MMO set in the Dungeon Fighter world, but completely open world and fully
I remember Dungeon Fighter. Was that a Nexon game? It is. Or it was. I don't know if it is now. I've never actually played too much of this game, and I wouldn't mind playing Dungeon Fighter Online. I was thinking about this game a little bit ago when we were talking about MMOs. When I was a kid, I would have considered this game an MMO, even though now I know that that's not true. Is this a Nexon game still? I found out about so many different games just because I was a Nexon fan. Yes. Okay, it was. Cool. This is the one that I'm thinking of. I remember this. I played a guy who used guns, and he had like a Van Helsing kind of look to him.
action. That's
Weird memories that just got triggered. So me and my friend Jake used to play a whole bunch of MMOs back in the day when we were in middle school, so like 13 years old. We would go and buy Nexon cards from the 7-Eleven with whatever money we could scrape together, and we played Mabinogi, we played Dungeon Fighter Online, we played Vindictus, we played Maple Story. We were super big into them. Grand Chase. We played Maple Story 2 when it came out. There was another 3D game that was sort of like Maple Story 2 that we played for a while too. We played so many MMOs together.
no longer an MMO. You know what it is? It's an Elden Ring Souls-like open world action RPG. Why is it no
I don't
longer?
need more of those either.
Because MMOs suck now. That's just the long and short of it. You want to know the kinds of MMOs we're getting? Revelation M just launched. You know what Revelation M is? The mobile version of Revelation Online. I streamed it for about 4 hours. Not only was it autoplay, auto-pathing bullshit, but
I do think about this sometimes when I'm playing ESO, that I wish that they would let me spend more time actually looking for things and not just throwing up quest markers on my screen that mark the exact item that I need to go get. I wish that when they said go and investigate this the green dragon or whatever, which is like a pub, and you went into this place, that there wasn't just a glowing piece of paper with a quest marker over top of it, that I would have to go into first person mode and go in there and explore. And autopathing is the next level of that. How do we take out the player from this experience? How do we let them get their gains without actually having to do anything? And that super frustrates me in video games.
quests, the voices themselves, all the voice acting, the translations were AI generated. They didn't even have a voice cast. They didn't even have a voice director. They literally let AI do everything. You know what else launched recently? Moonlight Blade M. Surprisingly, and I know this is going to come as a shock to you,
It's the mobile version of Moonlight Blade.
utilize autopathing, autoplay, and AI voice acting,
Yeah.
AI story, AI everything. These are actual abominations of games. These shouldn't even be.
This is the future, and it upsets me in extreme ways, and I think about it all the time. I think Tiff's taking a shower, so if you hear water running, I'm sorry. I don't have this deep problem with artificial intelligence the way some people do. I'm not so worried, or that's not true. I am worried about what it's going to do, but I don't think that it's evil in its own right. I think that it's a tool. Now, I think that the use of it to circumvent human creativity and to just sort of come up with just filler whatever and make all this stuff just using AI and doing nothing else with it yourself is just lazy and boring. And it's not that I think that it's an evil thing to do. I just think that it creates bad products most of the time. That these AI recipes and recipe photos and all these things are just boring, lazy, trivial, useless content for people, because people are so content hungry that they need to make things as quickly as possible, and AI has created that that ability. And it also gives the tools to people who probably wouldn't be able to make these things on their own, the ability to make these things. And the only problem with that, I don't believe in gatekeeping, but the problem with that is they don't have the filtration system inside of them to see what's good and bad. And they just think, well, this is better than what I could do, so obviously this must be good. But it's just not, man. I don't know. No offense to you if you use these tools. I mean, I really don't anymore. I have tried to use them in the past, but I just find them to be worthless. For anything other than studying, I find them to be pretty worthless.
Classified as MMOs anymore. The MMO genre right now is just in this horrible state. Not only has this genre stagnated significantly over the course of the last few years, but innovation has been stifled. Studios don't give a fuck anymore. Studios just want to milk players for every single cent they can, and that is evident in the kinds of games that they're producing. Good MMOs have become rare. All of the talented.
You know, when I was a kid, I used to sit around and dream of designing an MMO. I had a notebook that I had filled up with all these ideas for the different classes. You know, I was super into Bleach, and I was like, oh, Quincy would be a really cool class for an MMO, an archer that uses, you know, a magic bow and arrow and could dash around and do all these things. That would be a really cool idea for a class in an MMO, and I would scribble it down, and I would, you know, make these big berserker classes that had these huge maces, and they would, you know, push people back to break their guard, and then they'd smack them with the club and stuff. And I had all these ideas for an MMO, and I just dreamed of creating a world that felt really good to live in, that maybe took place in a big modern city instead of taking place inside of, you know, a fantasy world. And in this modern city, you could scale the buildings and you know, fight in PvP fights in these giant landscapes and all these things. And I just think that the creativity that I had as a child is the sort of thing that I wish that game developers had nowadays. Don't ask, can we do this? Ask what should we do? What do we want to do? What sounds cool and interesting? You know, why are there so few science fiction MMOs that have horror elements to them? Why are we so limited on what has to be an MMO? That it has to be set in this setting, and it has to have these classes that do these things, and dragons have. Why is that what we do? Why are we so limited in coming up with ideas nowadays?
Developers seem to have migrated on over to creating high quality indie survival games. Look at Valheim. Look at V Rising. Look at Palworld. All critical, overwhelming successes, all appealing to the MMO crowd. Why? Because they allow for a large group of players to play a game together by providing them what they want, while also providing them a high quality experience.
Well, and this is the truth now too, is that MMO players will tell you every single day of their lives that they want a world that feels like it's living and the people around you matter. But that's all a lie, dude. People want to hang out with their guild, and they occasionally want to have interactions with other guilds, but they want to hang out with their friends. They want to play an MMO where you can get 9 to 10 people together in a room and you all play together in this world, and that's all you need. That's what they really want to do, and they want it to happen quick.
That is not what we get
They're
out
old
of
now.
Horrible quality cross-platform.
The first MMO players came about in the early 2000s, the late 90s, early 2000s. And those people are now at the youngest in their 40s, 30s and 40s. You know, that's who that crowd is. And so there's a whole section of that market now that just doesn't have the time to be playing these games. And so they've had to move on to other things that still scratch that part of their brain, because MMOs are for a specific type of person, and other games are trying to fill up that void without being an MMO, because by nature of what an MMO is, when you have this many people in a world together, it has to take hours and 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 hours of your time, because you have to be able to set yourself apart from somebody else who is playing this game. Otherwise, it doesn't feel meaningful to you. But if you and 10 of your friends are playing a game together, then all of a sudden there only needs to be 10 different things that set you apart. When you're playing World of Warcraft, there are so many warlocks running around. Well, what makes you different than all of them? How long you've been doing it and how much you understand the game. That's what sets you apart. So they have to make these games based around that system of having these really high skill ceilings, having all these buttons, having all of these years of metas that you've trained into yourself and followed along in. That's what the power is. That's where the clout is being somebody who's been there since the beginning or for a super long time. And that's kind of a dumb thing in video games in general. I mean, I like that element of MMOs. I'm never going to be that person in an MMO, but I like that these sort of legends amongst the community can create themselves and become a thing. And especially in a world where you might run into one of those people, that makes it super easy to develop that. I mean, look at when the Season of Discovery came out and Asmon and all these people were, Asmon and Emmy and all these people were playing on one specific server. That server was impossible to get into, and you definitely couldn't get into it on the Alliance side because everybody wanted to play with those people because they become such legends at that game. And you can only get that kind of thing in an MMO. But in a game where your goal is to have as many people as you can really enjoy their experience, having a game where it's about you and your friends primarily, that's where it really matters. Look at how successful Fortnite's been. Fortnite has been so successful because you and your friends can go into a match together, and depending on who else is in that lobby with you, you can absolutely dominate, and one of your friends will probably show themselves to be really good. You'll learn stuff from them and from playing it, and then you grow together as a little tight-knit group, and that's what people like. That's sort of what people remember MMOs being, but realistically, most of us when we were playing MMOs back in the day weren't very good at them and never did get very good at them. I mean, when you look at the people who are really good at an MMO now, it's a whole different thing. No lifers, 30,000 hours, tens of thousands of dollars spent. It's a crazy thing.
Form MMOs. We've covered a few different games on the channel in the last 6 months. Traha, Arcto Chronicles. These are Asian MMOs that are cross-platform compatible with PC and mobile. There are multiple more coming out, and all of them are going to suffer the same fate. They're all going to be equally as terrible. And none of us are
Well, mobile MMOs are always going to be a really big deal nowadays. And the reason for that is because that's where people have the time to spend. It's obvious. If you look at your screen time, you have 5, 6, 7 hours of screen time on your phone every single day, then obviously you have the time to spend for that MMO. So they're trying to capitalize on that. They're trying to capitalize on that free time that you're spending scrolling TikTok. They're trying to pull you onto that. But the problem with that is that a phone is kind of a difficult peripheral to be able to map to an MMO. So you have to make it more simple. And when you make an MMO more simple, especially down to the level of a mobile game, it's just there's a lot of compromises that have to be made.
You're gonna want to play them. The future of the MMO genre is in a very bad state. There's literally nothing coming out in the foreseeable years that is going to retain our interest long term. Blue Protocol was fun during the beta. By the time it comes out, there are going to be much better games than it. Wuthering Waves is a better game than it. Azure Camellia is a better game than it. Genshin Impact is a better game than it. Throne and Liberty.
I don't like to hear that. I did like Genshin Impact. This is the thing. I've even logged into Genshin Impact in the past few months or few weeks or days even maybe. And then I think I deleted it off my PlayStation. But I don't like the mechanics of it. I have a whole video on it. Just go watch that video.
Is an inferior version of Black Desert. The reason it failed in Korea is because everyone already knows this.
Yeah.
Every other game that comes out or MMO that comes out by the time they actually do successfully release are going to be irrelevant. The MMO player base is slowly drying up day after day, week after week, month after month. We're migrating to other games.
I don't know if that's true. I think that, like I said, there's always new people coming into MMOs. I mean, people who have been playing these games for 2 decades don't understand this and have a really hard time wrapping their head around it. There are tons of people who just started playing WoW 6 months ago. It happens nonstop. They're not making content on the game. A lot of them are kids, but there are tons of people who have done that. Same thing with ESO. These games go on sale for extremely cheap and a lot of times have free trials. And it pulls people in and they play them and they find an experience that they enjoy and they find a community that they like and they stick around. This does happen. Go on Final Fantasy and look at how many sprouts are around. There's tons of them that are around. The player base isn't drying up. It's that for people who have played these games to death, there is nothing new to satisfy them now. And people who like MMOs, like me, with these dark circles around my eyes, we are obsessive. We are people who want to solve puzzles. We are people who want to play for extremely long periods of time. And MMOs are the thing that solves that for us the best. And that's just the way that it is. Now, there are tons of MMOs out there that a lot of these people haven't played, and they refuse to cover them for a whole bunch of reasons. But, it sucks because people spent so much time playing World of Warcraft and RuneScape during the time period where there were a whole bunch of really interesting MMOs coming out. I mean, Mabinogi captured me for so long and really... I need to do a video about Mabinogi at some point, but I really don't know how to do a video about Mabinogi because there's just nothing really being covered about it, and it's a totally different game now. But that game was so interesting. The way that you could form bonds with people in that game was unlike anything else because of how the combat system was set up. People could literally save your life. I mean, in that game back in the day, low-level enemies could kill you just as easily as high-level enemies if you didn't know what you were doing because of the style of combat that it was. It was a real-time rock, paper, scissors with entire groups of enemies, and you had to, with like 50 different options instead of just 3. And if an enemy was charging you and they were about to take you out, one of your friends could shield charge in and smack them out of the way and then start casting spells to freeze the other ones and save your life. And that was such a cool experience to have. Living with a guild in that was just astounding. Being in guild wars was awesome. I mean, it was what a game Mabinogi could have been, and it just fell unbelievably short in the long term and became what every Nexon game becomes, which is unfortunately a fashion fest and a bunch of events and just nonsense stuff that is kind of frustrating. But I like those games too. It's just that Mabinogi is definitely not the game that it used to be. And that's one game that I have such an emotional attachment to that I don't want to play what Mabinogi is now. And my opinion might change on that. If somebody would ever want to get me back into Mabinogi, it wouldn't be that hard, but I don't feel like going in there and trying to make all new friends. I had too close of friends through that game for me to try to do it over again.
Gotcha games, single player, multiplayer RPGs, survival games. And that's just because, honestly, MMOs created these days just suck. And a lot of people are just growing tired.
They're lazy.
Myself included. Now, again, this channel is going nowhere. This is just me sitting here exhausted, looking at all the horrible MMOs.
And it's really upsetting because of the experiences that we have all had with MMOs over the course of our lifetime. And it's almost impossible to get those back now. And I think that there's a whole bunch of reasons for that now. I mean, think about the fact that when you play an MMO, you're very unlikely to do anything that isn't optimal for your character and the growth of your account on that MMO. You want to be running your raids, you want to be finishing your dailies, you want to be getting new gear, you want to be crafting and those things just aren't conducive to having really interesting experiences and building bonds. I mean, I used to go to Mabinogi and just emote sit on the ground with other people who I know and just talk for hours and hours. And I know that sort of went away with Facebook and everything, but just a lot of it is because people have so little time to play these games and they think that they have to get something really important out of that playtime. They think they have to make extreme gains within the video game they're playing during that playtime, that it completely destroys this possibility of maybe you can just chill. Maybe the game is the friends we made along the way. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. But it's sad to see that there are other people who are feeling that MMOs are sort of going away. I don't have this perspective on this topic. I don't think that I need another MMO in my life. I think I sort of have what I need for probably the rest of my life, and I'll play these games off and on and until I eventually stop for whatever reason. But I think it'll be decades. I think I'll be logging into WoW once in a while and playing the new content and going through every expansion as it comes out for decades. I think that I'll be playing RuneScape and logging in and grinding my skills up for as long as those servers are online. I'll be getting on MapleStory and seeing how much my cash items are now worth and putting them in the auction house and going out during events and getting a few levels up for a long time. I think I'll be logging into ESO and doing some quests and riding around on my horse and crafting and seeing what a build that works for my character currently is and finding new skill lines to do. I think I'll be doing that forever. I think I'll be working through the backlog of DLC content for Final Fantasy 14 for the rest of my life because it takes so long to get through every single one, and everyone tells me I have to watch every single cutscene, and that takes hours of my life for a long time. So, if you like MMOs, don't be disheartened because other people say that they're bad or going away. Just continue to play the games that you enjoy. And that's good advice for everybody. Stop worrying about what all of these people say and what everybody thinks about the thing that you like. Stop letting that control what you do and just unabashedly do the things that you enjoy. That's all it takes to have a good time, and just chase that forever, man. That's all it is.